The plea and the response. The crystal spires of Zenlar Prime had once stretched toward the stars like fingers of hope. For 12,000 years, the Zenlarians had been known throughout their sector as philosophers, architects, and peacekeepers. Their crystalline technology, beautiful, functional, and harmonious with the natural world, had become the envy of neighboring systems. But now, those same magnificent structures lay shattered across the landscape, their fragments catching the light of their dying sun in a final tragic display. Commander Ilara Tin stood at the window of the last underground command center, her translucent skin showing the rapid pulse of her 3 hearts. The neural tendrils that framed her face, once a brilliant azure, had faded to a dull gray as her body diverted energy to basic survival functions. She watched the latest holographic reports with eyes that had not closed in 7 cycles. "Another city has fallen," reported Sub-Commander Vex, his voice barely audible over the hum of the failing life support systems. "That makes 17 in the last rotation. The southern hemisphere is." He paused, struggling to maintain composure, completely lost. Ilara didn't respond immediately. There was nothing to say. The Korsath Collective had appeared at the edges of their system less than a month ago, massive, biomechanical hives that consumed everything in their path. Not for resources or territory, but simply because it was their nature to consume, to assimilate, to destroy. The Zenlarians had no significant military. Their defensive capabilities had been designed to deter pirates and handle natural disasters, not to repel an invasion force of this magnitude. Their attempts at communication had been met with silence, their offers of peaceful coexistence ignored, and their pleas for mercy answered with accelerated aggression. "How many survivors remain?" Ilara finally asked. "Less than 4 million, Vex replied, his neural tendrils trembling. "Most are gathered in the crystal caverns beneath the capital. The rest are scattered across the northern continent in emergency shelters. Our food reserves will last another 15 cycles at most." Ilara nodded slowly. 4 million. Out of a population that had once numbered over 3 billion. The Korsath were thorough in their destruction. "And our transmissions? Has anyone responded?" There was a desperate hope in her voice that even she recognized as futile. "The neighboring systems are either already fallen or in full retreat," Vex said. "The Galactic Council has issued a quarantine order for this entire sector. No ships are permitted in or out." Ilara's 3rd heart nearly stopped. "They've abandoned us." It wasn't a question, but Vex nodded anyway. "They call it containment protocol. Standard procedure when dealing with the Korsath. Sacrifice the few to protect the many." The command center fell silent. The dozen remaining officers, all that was left of Zenlar's leadership, stood motionless, the weight of extinction pressing down upon them. "There is one option we haven't tried," said Archivist Len, speaking for the first time. The oldest among them, Len's skin had become almost transparent with age, the complex network of veins and neural pathways visible beneath the surface. All eyes turned to him. "The ancestral beacon," he said. Ilara's tendrils stiffened. "That's a myth, Archivist. A children's story." "No," Len said firmly. "It exists. I've seen it. Deep in the archive vaults, protected for millennia. It was created by our ancestors during the first expansion, before we encountered any other spacefaring species." "What does it do?" asked Vex. "It sends a signal," Len explained, "not directed at any known civilization, but outward toward the unexplored regions of the galaxy. It's an all-frequency distress call, designed to be recognizable to any form of intelligence, regardless of language or culture." "So you propose we call into the void and hope someone answers?" Ilara couldn't keep the skepticism from her voice. "I propose we use the one option we have left," Len replied simply. "Because we have nothing left to lose." 20 hours later, after navigating through collapsed tunnels and evading Korsath scout patrols, they stood before the ancestral beacon. It was smaller than Ilara had imagined, a simple pyramidal structure of unknown material, covered in inscriptions so ancient that even Len could only partially translate them. Our ancestors built this nearly 15,000 years ago, the archivist explained. Before we achieved faster-than-light travel, before we joined the galactic community. They sent colony ships into the unknown, equipped with these beacons. Most were lost, but our ancestors kept this one as a reminder of our earliest journeys among the stars. How do we activate it? Ilara asked, unwilling to admit the small spark of hope that had ignited within her. Len approached the beacon and placed his palm against its surface. It immediately began to glow with a soft blue light. It responds to Zenlarian DNA, he explained. Now we must input our distress code. His fingers moved across the surface in a complex pattern. The beacon's glow intensified, and a series of crystalline tones emanated from its core. This is what it says, Len translated. We who reach for the stars now face extinction. If any beings of compassion hear this call, we ask only for mercy. We are the Zenlarians. We have always sought peace. Please help us. The message repeated 3 times, then the beacon fell silent once more. But its glow remained, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. It's transmitting, Len said, on frequencies and through methods I don't fully understand. Our ancestors built it to reach farther than any conventional signal. And now we wait, Ilara said, not bothering to hide her doubt. Now we wait, Len agreed. They didn't have to wait long. 3 cycles later, as the Korseth began their final push toward the underground capital, the beacon suddenly changed color, shifting from blue to a deep crimson. A sound emerged from it, not the melodic tones of before, but a harsh, staccato rhythm that made the Zenlarians' neural tendrils vibrate uncomfortably. It's received a response, Len said, his voice tight with disbelief. Before anyone could react, the beacon projected a hologram, crude by Zenlarian standards, showing a simple message in an unfamiliar script. Beneath it, the beacon provided a translation. Dis-3SS Sci-Genale Reci Ivid. Q ordinateis Q-onenviramid. Aris-P-onis e-force deployed. ESTI-mated arrival. 6 HOURs. Hold position. UNIFF-IET Earth Command. Earth? Vex echoed, confusion evident. I've never heard of this civilization. Nor have I, said Len, his scholarly interest momentarily overriding his fear. They must come from beyond the Galactic Council's mapped territories. 6 hours, Ilara said, her mind racing. The Korseth will have reached the capital by then. We need to evacuate everyone deeper into the caverns. But even as she spoke, an alert sounded from one of the few functioning sensor arrays. Ilara rushed to the display, expecting to see the advancing Korseth forces. Instead, she found herself staring at an anomaly forming at the edge of the system. Something's coming through, she whispered. But it's not using any jump point or wormhole I recognize. The anomaly expanded, a swirling distortion in the fabric of space itself. And then they emerge. Ships unlike any the Zenlarians had ever seen. Not the organic curves of council vessels, nor the jagged asymmetry of Korseth hives. These were angular, geometric, and utterly alien to Zenlarian eyes. Black as the void itself, with sharp, predatory lines that spoke of one purpose: war. 6 hours, Vex said, his voice barely a whisper. How did they get here so quickly? Len stared at the display, his ancient eyes wide. Our beacon must have reached further than I thought. Much further. The lead ship was massive, nearly the size of a small moon, with flanking vessels arranged in formation around it. They moved with precision that suggested either incredible discipline or automated systems. No communication was broadcast, no greeting or introduction offered. They simply arrived and began to move toward Zenlar Prime with unwavering purpose. They're heading straight for the Korseth fleet, Ilara observed, her heart's racing. But they're outnumbered at least 20 to 1. The Zenlarians watched in silence as the unknown armada accelerated toward their would-be destroyers. The Korsath, sensing the new arrival, began to shift their formations, turning their high ships to face the unexpected threat. And then the newcomers opened fire. It wasn't like any weapons technology the Zenlarians had ever witnessed. Beams of intensely concentrated energy, so bright they caused the viewing screens to automatically dim, lanced out from the Earth vessels, cutting through Korsath ships as if they were made of vapor. Where the beams struck, the biomechanical hives didn't merely explode or fragment. They seemed to disintegrate at a molecular level, coming apart in silent bursts of light and dust. "By the ancestors," breathed Vex. "What are these weapons?" More importantly, Ilara said, her voice hushed with a mixture of awe and fear, "What manner of beings created them?" The Korsath, recovering from their initial shock, launched a counterattack. Swarms of smaller craft poured from the high ships, surrounding the Earth vessels in a cloud of attackers. Energy weapons and biological projectiles hammered against the black hulls. For a moment, it seemed the newcomers might be overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Then, from bays along the sides of the Earth ships, smaller craft emerged, sleek, angular machines that moved with impossible speed and agility. They tore through the Korsath swarms like predators among prey, their weapon systems leaving nothing but debris in their wake. "They're winning," Len said incredulously. "They're actually winning." Ilara couldn't speak. After a month of watching her civilization crumble before the Korsath onslaught, after accepting the inevitability of extinction, she now found herself witnessing what could only be described as salvation. Yet something about these saviors sent a chill through her neural network. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than an hour. When it was over, not a single Korsath vessel remained intact. The Earth fleet, apparently undamaged, took up positions in orbit around Zenlar Prime. Finally, a transmission came through. "Threat eliminated. Planet secured. Landing party preparing for descent. To CU or DLANAT is 47.9 to 16.2. Prepare to receive representatives. UNIF, IED Earth Command." The coordinates matched their current location. These beings, these humans, were coming to meet them. "What do we do?" asked Vex, looking to Ilara. She straightened her posture, her neural tendrils beginning to regain some of their color. "We prepare to receive the representatives of Earth," she said firmly, "and we thank them for answering our call when no one else would." But in the privacy of her own thoughts, a question remained unanswered. They had begged for mercy, but what had arrived were war machines of terrifying power. What kind of civilization creates such weapons, and what would they ask in return for their assistance? As the Earth landing craft began its descent through Zenlar's atmosphere, Ilara Tain prepared to meet the beings who had saved her people, and wondered if, in their desperation, they had called forth something they didn't truly understand. War machines and revelation. The landing zone had been hastily prepared in what remained of the Great Assembly Hall. Once a cathedral-like space where Zenlarians had gathered to share knowledge and celebrate cultural achievements, it now stood partially exposed to the sky, its crystal dome shattered by Korsath bombardment. Emergency force fields kept the atmosphere contained, their blue energy casting eerie shadows across the gathered survivors. Ilara stood at the front of the reception committee, flanked by Vex, Len, and the few remaining members of the Zenlarian leadership. None spoke. The distant rumble of the approaching Earth vessel filled the silence, growing louder until it dominated all other sounds. "It's so precise," murmured Vex, watching through the force field as the craft descended. Unlike the elegant organic shapes of Zenlarian ships or the chaotic asymmetry of Korsath vessels, the Earth landing craft was all straight lines and perfect angles, a black geometric shape that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. It touched down with mechanical precision, sending a small cloud of crystalline dust billowing outward. For several long moments, nothing happened. The craft sat motionless, offering no indication of life or movement within. "Perhaps they require time to adapt to our atmosphere," suggested Len, though his scientific curiosity couldn't hide the nervous tremor in his voice. As if in response to his words, a seam appeared along the side of the craft. It widened, revealing an interior so dark that it was impossible to see within. Then something emerged, and the assembled Zenlarians collectively drew back in shock. It wasn't organic. At least, not in any way they recognized. The figure that stepped from the craft stood nearly twice the height of an average Zenlarian, encased in armor of the same light-absorbing material as the ships. Its form was vaguely humanoid, but with proportions that spoke of something built rather than born. Shoulders too broad, limbs too perfectly articulated, movements too measured. Behind it came others, similar in design but with variations in their armor and apparent function. Some carried what could only be weapons, though of a design unfamiliar to the Zenlarians. Others seemed equipped with scanning or communication devices. "Are they machines?" Vex whispered, his neural tendrils pulled tight against his skull in a Zenlarian expression of fear. "I don't think so," Ilara replied, trying to maintain her composure. "I think they're inside those suits." The lead figure approached the Zenlarian delegation, its featureless helmet revealing nothing of what might lie beneath. It stopped precisely 3 meters away, close enough for communication, but maintaining a distance that could be interpreted as respect for personal space or tactical caution. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a voice emerged, not from the figure itself, but from a small device that floated forward from behind it. The voice was flat, synthetic, and spoke in perfect Zenlarian. "Greetings, people of Zenlar Prime. We are representatives of the United Earth Defense Force. We have responded to your distress signal and eliminated the immediate threat to your civilization. Are you Ilara Tin, acting leader of the Zenlarian survivors?" Ilara stepped forward, trying to ignore the trembling in her limbs. "I am Ilara Tin. On behalf of all Zenlarians, I thank you for your intervention. You have saved what remains of our people." The helmet tilted slightly, an almost imperceptible nod. "The Korsath Collective has been designated a Class 1 extinction threat under Earth Protocol. Their attempted genocide of your species triggered an automatic response protocol. Further Korsath forces have been detected moving toward this sector. They will be intercepted and neutralized." The clinical detachment in the synthetic voice sent a chill through Ilara's neural network. These beings had just destroyed an armada that had brought the Zenlarians to the brink of extinction, and they described it as an automatic response protocol. "May I ask," she began cautiously, "whom we are addressing? We know nothing of Earth or its people." There was a pause, as if the question required consultation or consideration. Then the helmet of the lead figure began to retract, folding away with mechanical precision to reveal what lay beneath. The face was similar to a Zenlarian in basic structure: 2 eyes, a central breathing apparatus, a mouth, but the differences were striking. The skin was a deep brown, lacking the translucence of Zenlarian tissue. The eyes were smaller, more focused, with irises of dark amber. And instead of neural tendrils, the head was crowned with tightly curled black hair. "I am Commander Adana Okafor of the United Earth Defense Force," said the being, now in a voice that was distinctly organic, deep, resonant, and undeniably alive. "We are humans." The revelation that these powerful beings were indeed organic life forms, not the war machines they had appeared to be, sent a ripple of murmurs through the Zenlarian delegation. Ilara found herself momentarily speechless before regaining her diplomatic composure. "Commander Okafor, your assistance has been miraculous. But we don't understand. We've been part of the galactic community for thousands of years, yet we've never encountered or even heard of humans or Earth." A subtle expression crossed the human's face, something between amusement and grim satisfaction. "That is by design, Commander Tin. Earth and its colonies maintain a policy of isolation from the galactic community. We have observed your civilizations for centuries, but we do not participate in your politics or trade networks." "Then why answer our call?" asked Len, stepping forward despite protocol. The old archivist's scientific curiosity had overtaken his caution. Commander Okafor's gaze shifted to him. "Because you asked for mercy, not allegiance. Because you faced extinction, not inconvenience. And because the ancestral beacon you activated was not built by Zenlarians." This statement caused even more confusion among the delegation. Len's neural tendrils twisted in shock. "Not built by. But our historical records clearly state." "Your historical records are incomplete," Okafor interrupted. "The device you call the ancestral beacon was placed on your world approximately 15,000 years ago by human explorers. Similar beacons were left on thousands of worlds with developing intelligent life. They were designed to activate only in the case of extinction-level events." Ilara's 3 hearts beat rapidly as she processed this information. "You're saying that humans have been watching over our civilization since before we achieved spaceflight. Why?" Commander Okafor's expression softened slightly. "Protection is written into our oldest codes. Humanity's early expansion into space was met with hostility and aggression. We nearly perished as a species. When we finally overcame those who saw our destruction, we made a promise to ourselves and to the galaxy. Never again would an intelligent species face extinction if we could prevent it." One of the other humans stepped forward and whispered something to Okafor. She nodded, then turned back to the Zenlarians. "We must return to our ships. The Korsath reinforcements will arrive within 26 hours. We need to establish a defensive perimeter." "Wait," Ilara said quickly. "You've destroyed their fleet. Surely they won't." "The Korsath are a hive consciousness," Okafor explained with grim certainty. "They've already transmitted the location of Zenlar Prime to every hive ship in this quadrant. They will continue to come until they've either consumed this world or been completely eradicated." A heavy silence fell over the assembly hall. The brief hope that had blossomed with the humans' arrival now withered in the face of this new information. "Then we are still doomed," Vex said, his voice hollow. Commander Okafor's expression hardened. "No, you requested mercy, and mercy has been granted. Earth does not abandon those under its protection. We have already summoned the Aegis Fleet." Even through the translation, the term Aegis Fleet carried weight, something ancient and powerful. Before any of the Zenlarians could ask what this meant, the ground beneath them trembled. At first, Ilara thought it might be another Korsath bombardment, but the vibration was different. Deeper, more rhythmic, almost deliberate. "What's happening?" she asked, trying to keep the panic from her voice. Commander Okafor's expression remained unchanged. "The Guardians are awakening." Outside, beyond the shattered dome of the assembly hall, the ground began to split open, not in chaotic fissures of a natural earthquake, but in perfect geometric patterns, squares, circles, and hexagons opening across the landscape like planned excavations. And from these openings, massive forms began to rise. They were machines, true machines, unlike the armored suits the humans wore. Colossal constructs of the same black material as the ships, rising from hidden chambers deep beneath Zenlar Prime's surface. Some took humanoid form, towering hundreds of meters tall. Others resembled earth animals, lions, eagles, bears, but rendered in mechanical perfection. Still others had no recognizable shape at all, their forms defying conventional geometry. "The Guardians were placed on Zenlar Prime during our first survey," Okafor explained as the Zenlarians stared in awe and terror. "They sleep beneath the surface of every world we've deemed worthy of protection, waiting for the signal to defend." "All this time," Len whispered, his ancient eyes wide with wonder. "All these millennia, they've been here, beneath our cities, our homes." "How many?" Ilara managed to ask. "On Zenlar Prime, 108 Titan-class Guardians, 492 Sentinel-class, and approximately 12,000 smaller defensive units," Okafor answered matter-of-factly. A standard protection package for a world of this size and importance. The Zenlarians struggled to comprehend the scale of what they were witnessing. For thousands of years, they had believed themselves alone in the universe until they joined the galactic community. Now they learned that they had never truly been alone, that beneath their feet, an ancient force had slumbered, placed there by beings they had never met. Why? Ilara asked finally. Why go to such lengths to protect species you've never even contacted? Commander Okafor turned her gaze from the rising guardians to meet Ilara's eyes. For the first time, emotion broke through the human's disciplined exterior, a complex mixture of determination, sorrow, and something like parental concern. Because someone must, she said simply. Because all life deserves the chance to evolve, to grow, to reach its potential without the threat of arbitrary extinction. We've seen too many civilizations fall, too many unique perspectives on the universe silenced forever. We decided that if we had the power to prevent such losses, we had the responsibility to use it. As the last of the Guardians took position around what remained of the Zenlarian capital, a new transmission came through on all frequencies. The voice was different from Okafor's, older, carrying authority that seemed to resonate in the very air. This is Admiral Helena Chen of the Earth Aegis Fleet to all Corsath vessels approaching Zenlar Prime. This world and its people are now under Earth protection by Emergency Protocol 7. Any approach within 2 light hours of this system will be considered hostile action and met with maximum response. This warning will not be repeated. Commander Okafor's communicator chimed. She checked it, then looked back to Ilara. I must return to my ship. The Aegis fleet will arrive within 4 hours. When the immediate threat has been eliminated, we will discuss the future of Zenlar Prime and your people's place in it. Will you reveal yourselves to the galactic community now? Len asked. A ghost of a smile crossed Okafor's face. No, Earth remains in the shadows for now. But know this, you are not the first civilization we have saved from extinction, nor will you be the last. We watch, we wait, and when innocent beings cry out for mercy, we answer. As the humans prepared to depart, Ilara stepped forward one last time. Commander Okafor, she said, her voice steadier now, you speak of protection and responsibility, but your weapons, your guardians, they are built for war. How do we reconcile this contradiction? Okafor paused, considering the question with evident respect for its insight. We build for war so that others may build for peace, she said finally. Humanity tried to enter the galactic stage with open hands and hopeful hearts. We were nearly destroyed for our naivety. We learned that in a universe where predators exist, one must either become a predator oneself or learn to hunt the hunters. She gestured toward the Zenlarian survivors gathered behind Ilara. Your people create beauty, knowledge, harmony. You reach for the stars with curiosity and wonder. This is as it should be. But such civilizations are vulnerable to those who see only resources to be consumed or territory to be claimed. So we made our choice. Humanity would bear the burden of vigilance, of readiness for war, so that others might be free to pursue peace. With that, Commander Okafor's helmet reformed around her head, sealing with a soft hiss. The human delegation returned to their craft with the same precise, measured movements with which they had arrived. As the ship lifted off, Ilara watched it ascend through the shattered dome of the assembly hall, a black geometric shape against the orange sky of evening. Around them, the Guardians stood watch, ancient sentinels awakened from their long slumber. Above, the remaining Earth vessels maintained their protective formation around the planet. And approaching, though still unseen, was the Aegis fleet, humanity's answer to those who would extinguish the light of civilization. They begged for mercy, Len said softly, quoting from an ancient Zenlarian philosophy text, and mercy answered with justice. Ilara nodded, her gaze still fixed on the departing craft. We called for help into the void, she replied, and the void sent its guardians. As night fell on Zenlar Prime, The survivors began the long process of rebuilding. But they did so with the knowledge that they were not alone, that somewhere in the darkness between the stars, humanity washed over them. Not as conquerors or rulers, but as silent protectors, bearing the burden of war so that others might know peace. The Corsath never returned to Zenlar Prime. The Earth ships departed as mysteriously as they had appeared, leaving only a small contingent to oversee the reactivation of the planetary defense systems. The Guardians returned to their chambers beneath the surface, resuming their silent vigil. In time, as the Zenlarian civilization rebuilt itself, they incorporated a new symbol into their most sacred art and architecture. A simple geometric shape, black against the light, representing those who had answered when they called for mercy. Not gods, not saviors, but something perhaps more profound. Beings who had chosen to protect rather than dominate, to serve rather than rule. And in the Great Archive, alongside the histories of Zenlar Prime and the knowledge of countless generations, a new section was established, dedicated to the study of humanity and the code by which they lived. For the Zenlarians had learned a crucial lesson in their darkest hour. True strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the choice to protect. And somewhere among the stars, humanity continued its silent watch, waiting for the next cry for mercy in a universe where such cries too often went unanswered.